The US is finally going to invest in infrastructure. And as I said in the last video, infrastructure is extremely important, especially for the industrial sector. Therefore, in this video, we shall go through the $2 trillion infrastructure package that the US has just unveiled. Now, there are some key points we will go through in this video, and I'll sum them up in a couple of words. Why, where, and for how much. Let's first answer why. Infrastructure can reduce the cost of transportation. It can reduce time delays, reduce commuting times, how much goods cost, and it can increase productivity. Now, this may not really matter for those whose jobs have shifted online due to COVID. However, for the industrial sector, all of these benefits give the American industrial sector a competitive edge and was one of the main reasons the US became an economic superpower. I was watching this propaganda cartoon from the 1950s made by the US government, which was on YouTube, where this point was raised. The reason the American worker could make a decent living in the 1950s and buy goods for much cheaper than the rest of the world was due to machines and tools, or in other words, the physical capital that then was only available in the US because of World War II. But now, times have changed, and Asia has largely superseded the US industrial sector to become the factory of the world. However, this does not have to be permanent. You see, the US does not need the rest of the world. They have a large enough consumer base that if they wanted to, they could shut off from the rest of the world. Or if they don't want to go to the extremes, at least give an unfair advantage to their industrial sector. And this is what the $2 trillion infrastructure package plans to do. You see, companies are willing to shift back to the US, at least some of them, if they have world-class infrastructure and incentives such as tax rebates and money to set up factories. And with the trade war still not died down and hostilities between the US and China still high, it makes sense that Biden has launched this new infrastructure injection. The second question is where? Where will all of this money go? The answer? Bridges, highways, roads, expanding high-speed broadband, building new schools, improving power lines, and promoting green energy and electric vehicles. If you want more information on this, there is an article in the description from NPR. And finally, we come to the last question. How much? $2.3 trillion that will be spent over 8 years, or about $240 billion a year. If we were to take 2019 as a base year, then this plan should increase the budget deficit by about 17.6%. However, this number doesn't really matter. For a more better understanding, let's talk about interest payments. Currently, the US debt is $28 trillion. However, the net interest on debt is $397 billion according to the usdebtclock.org. So that's an interest rate of about 1.4% a year. Now, Biden plans on increasing the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%, and also an increase in corporate tax for multinational companies. But this shall pay for only about $900 billion. So, I'm assuming that the remaining $1.4 trillion will be deficit financed. This means that the interest payments should be about $19.8 billion a year, or only about a 1.5% increase in the budget deficit. To better understand this, we can take the 2020 budget for example. In 2020, the federal tax revenue was $3.48 trillion and the total spending amounted to $7.768 trillion. So the budget deficit is $4.286 trillion. But since almost all of this was financed through debt, the US only has to pay 1.5% of it every year, or about $64 billion a year. Therefore, for the government to pay this amount, the 2021 revenue should be 1.8% higher, which is more than achievable. Thanks for watching Economics Matters, and see you next video.